Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing Super Bowl 49 right now with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com and Troy West from AllPlaysWin.com. Before we get your takes on the sides here, interesting, very competitive line. Troy West, just give us a plug for AllPlaysWin.com. Tell us what that site's all about for anyone who's maybe being introduced to you for the first time in this video.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Yeah, we're going strong. This is our 9th year in business. 2014, a very successful year, 9 out of 12 winning months. And one thing, Pete, that we hold our hat high on is our customer service. I truly believe it's the best customer service in this business. Along with that, you're going to get winning picks. We've been outstanding on your videos and outstanding at the website. And Pete, just for the sake of the Super Bowl, you can go back and watch our video last year. One of our biggest plays of the year ended up being the Super Bowl. I'm not one to bet marquee games typically, but we had Seattle extremely big over Denver. Excited to give you guys another winner in this Super Bowl.
All right, that sounds great. Very interested to hear what you have to say about it. And then Joe Duffy, professional handicapper for 27 years. So this is what, your 28th Super Bowl as a professional handicapper?
Yeah, my first one would have been the one of 89. So yeah, 27, 20, whatever. But I've been handicapping and betting long before that. So if it's 28 or 29 or 27, I've been doing this a long time.
There you go. Not many people have been doing it as long as Joe Duffy, so he must be doing something right. Give a quick plug for OffshoreInsiders.com, which is where your for-pay picks can be found every day, right?
Yes, and I also did have Seattle last year. Unfortunately, we don't have the most overrated quarterback in NFL history, Peyton Manning, to go against this year. But, you know, although I'll flat out admit all the years I've been in the business, is this my best football season I'll be winding up? No, not exactly. But we're in the midst of one of our better basketball seasons, and we handicap basketball 7 days a week, OffshoreInsiders.com.
All right, that sounds great, Joe. Well, Troy West, let's go to you. You know, Seattle Seahawks expert, definitely proven it this year and in years past with your generally winning picks. Here they are in the Super Bowl. The line has shifted against them, though. Right now they're a 1-point underdog, and I guess the big question mark here is how much are they going to be affected by possible injuries to their defense? First, just address that. Should we just throw out, you know, all the talk of possible injuries to Richard Sherman and others, or is it a real concern?
No, I think it's a real concern. You know, right now Earl Thomas is still not practiced this week. They have several guys that haven't practiced this week. I know these guys will be ready for the game, but how ready? I know you get to the end of the season, Pete, guys are playing banged up. That's obvious. It is the NFL, and we're so far along. But, you know, my God, you know, Earl Thomas came out in a cast to finish out that game against Green Bay. We'll see where he's at. Richard Sherman finished that game with one arm. We'll see where he's at. They are going to play, but, you know, I do think it's a cause of concern, absolutely.
Well, Troy, first I want to get your take on the line and the line movement. You know, Seattle, of course, covering spreads week in and week out down the stretch of the regular season, but the Pats, of course, were also a great bet for the bulk of the regular season, and the line has moved in the Pats' favor. Do you think that Seattle is getting disrespected a little bit with the line movement?
Yeah, it's an interesting switch, but I kind of go to that East Coast bias. I think a lot of people still, like you said, Pete, jumping on Belichick, jumping on Brady in the Super Bowl, but a stat that really not a lot of people go off of, which is interesting, is Russell Wilson's record against Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, 11-0, Pete. So he's going for his 12th straight win against, you know, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Whether that plays effect into this game, that I don't know, but it is surprising to see such a line switch.
All right. So, in light of all of your, day in and day out hard-earned expertise covering the Seahawks, what do you think? Seahawks +1, is that the play, or is Brady and Belichick at a near pick'em line the side with value?
I'm going with the New England Patriots big in this one, Pete.
Okay, tell us why.
Going with the Patriots big for several reasons. Number one, Pete, it was overlooked last game, and we were on Green Bay heavily in that last game, and it really was never in doubt on the cover, getting 7.5. We're going with the Patriots. You got to understand, Pete, Seattle lost Paul Richardson. People don't realize the impact of this guy. He was their kick returner. He was their deep threat down the field. You saw what happened on special teams. Doug Baldwin comes out, first kickoff, fumbles the football. Seattle's depleted on special teams. They have a guy returning punts that really has no impact on the football game. You look at the way that Seattle likes to play, I think it feeds right into New England's defense. New England's defense is physical with Brandon Browner and Revis on the edges. We look at the way that Jamie Collins has been playing this year. He's been outstanding. I expect him to contain Russell Wilson. Vince Wilfork clogging that middle, Pete. Marshawn Lynch is a north-south runner. I can't expect him to have a monster football game like he has in the past. And if you look at the offense from the standpoint of New England, they exposed Seattle's weaknesses. Seattle has a tough time guarding slot receivers and tight ends. You look at the big game earlier this year that they gave up to Antonio Gates. You look at the big game that they gave up to Travis Kelce against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then even the no-name tight end, Rodgers, from Green Bay, they had a tough time defending him. Gronkowski, a big mismatch, I believe, for Seattle, and Amendola and Edelman, I believe those slot receivers are going to be mismatches for that secondary. I'm not saying that the secondary of Seattle's poor, but I think it feeds into the strength of New England. And then going to the coaching matchup, I think that's a wash. Pete Carroll's proven that he can coach in these big games. Belichick, though, give him 2 weeks for that defense to prep for an offense that was exposed last week. Like we said, Pete, it's a miracle that Seattle's here. It really is a miracle. I think the miracle ends this week. I'm going to go with the Patriots.
That sounds like it's not just a lead. That's a solid pick there, right?
That's about as solid of a pick as you're going to get from allplayswin.com.
There you go. Pats -1. Joe Duffy, you've heard the analysis from Troy West from allplayswin.com, and that certainly is how the initial line movement, at least to date as of this call, has gone. Do you agree with Troy West's analysis and the early market line movement?
No, I very much respect Troy sticking his neck out on the line because that's what good handicappers do. But we disagree here. As far as the line move is concerned, it's ironic. I was actually watching the Super Bowl at a Super Bowl party with a fellow professional handicapper, Trace Adams. He does picks on another site, but he goes back to my Scorephone days. And we were talking about what we thought the line was going to be. And midway through the third quarter, I was saying that, if the Patriots do hold on to win, I think that Seattle would be about a 3-point favorite. The line, I think, really moved so much is because Seattle did have that miracle comeback. And on the other hand, New England, of course, looked quite impressive in their route. But any handicapper will tell you that too many bettors react too much to what happened in the previous game, and especially when it's a high-profile game. So the reason that there has been such a big line move, where the first bettable line, which was made while the New England game was in progress, was actually Seattle at -3. I think Bet Online and the whatever Vegas casino it is that duplicates their line, the first bet line that you could bet, but it was a low limit, was Seattle -3, and that's what I had projected that the line would be.
Right.
Now, as the game went on, the New England and Indianapolis game went on, I knew that the line would have to go down because of the public reaction, but I do think that Seattle should be the favorite here. Most people perceive New England to have the much better offense and Seattle to have the better defense, but in reality, Seattle has a pretty darn good offense themselves. Are averaging 5.2 yards per rushing attempt. The team's normally allowing 4.3 and 7.3 yards per pass to 6.8. That's why we'd rather look at yards per rush and yards per play rather than total yards, because total yards given up and total yards that you get is sometimes more reflective of the pace and the style of play that you have. I don't really think there's much of a difference in offense. Look, I've been a big Russell Wilson fan from day one. Seattle, I know they're banged up, but again, the 2 weeks rest, I think, is going to come in big when it comes to the Super Bowl. Seattle is better on defense. I think they're a lot closer on offense than a lot of people think. So I do think Seattle is the play here.
Joe Duffy, first of all, first thing you got to address, Troy West said that you can't throw out the reports of injuries on Seattle's defense. I might be more inclined to agree with you if there weren't such big concerns with injury on Seattle's defense. That's not something to push you off of them?
Now, I've been doing this a long time, and when you hear that a key player is questionable, especially in a big game like this, right, inevitably he winds up playing. And look, Richard Sherman, whatever you want to say about him, he is one tough hombre, and those painkillers out there, they're pretty good. And, this is not a regular season game. It's for the Super Bowl, so they're going to do whatever they can to make sure he's fine. In 2 weeks, it's a long time off. Football's a physical sport, so I think that, the injuries are going to be put under a big microscope, and who knows, maybe that'll give us an even more beneficial line. But I would be surprised if come game time that any of the injured players are subpar.
All right, well, let's discuss the fact that it's on a neutral field right now. Troy West, what do you think? What do you make of people who might give the opinion that Seattle looks more dominant than they really are when they're at home because they have such a big home field advantage, and then we go into a neutral field, their drop-off will be more than it would be for other teams with less of a home field advantage?
Well, it's a great point, Pete. Absolutely. I mean, I try to compile every single point. That's a great point. This team really feeds off that 12th man crowd. There's a reason that throughout the course of the week that they compared the Tom Brady to Aaron Rodgers to Andrew Luck to the 12th man. They compared the 4-12s. The 12th man will obviously be present, but it's definitely not going to be present like it is in CenturyLink Field. So, no, I think it's a huge impact on Seattle not 12th man there to help carry and feed that defense. They really do thrive off of that crowd, Pete. I've been to several games this season, and they thrive off it. So I think it's a big hit for Seattle, absolutely.
All right, Joe Duffy, what about that? You know, Seattle, big home field advantage. Now they're going into a neutral location. They're not going to have that advantage.
No, I agree with you. Seattle does have the single biggest home field or home court advantage in all of sports, and they obviously are not going to have that here, but they're also not going to be playing on the road. Remember, New England at times, they've benefited from a home field advantage, often because of the weather, where, you know, a lot of times they'll be hosting teams that aren't used to playing in that weather, and they're not going to have that advantage here. So, yes, of course, it is a key factor, but no, I think Seattle is the better team.
Well, disagreement here in SBR Videos. Troy West from allplayswin.com, liking the Pats. Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com, liking Seattle. All right, so let's do a quick sum up here. Troy West, you like the Pats. Just quickly tell us, what are your top 2 or 3 factors for liking the Pats?
Belichick with 2 weeks to prepare, and the fact Seattle's going to be a little bit banged up here, Pete.
All right, Joe Duffy, what are your 2 or 3 reasons for liking Seattle?
Top to bottom, Seattle is the best team in the NFL, and 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about Russell Wilson, one of the great quarterbacks of all time.
All right, there you have it. Troy West liking the Pats -1. Joe Duffy taking Seattle +1. We shall see who's proven right. Thanks so much, guys. Awesome insights as always.
The SBR Network offers free sports picks and game breakdowns, big money free betting contests year-round, a real-time Vegas-style odds monitoring service, and much more. So come see for yourself. To stay updated on SBR news and promotions, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, and do be sure to subscribe to the Sportsbook Review YouTube channel to catch all our daily sports shows.